So for the next talk, I invite Dr. Purvi Chawla, who is a national and international figure, consultant diabetologist and director of clinical research, Lina Diabetic Center. She is a investigator to many of the trials, governing council member of RSSDI Maharashtra chapter, executive member of IRO. Over to you, Dr. Purvi, for the talk on closing the gap, why CGM shouldn't wait in diabetes pregnancy. Over to you.
Good morning, everyone. So lovely to see such vibrant faces. And thank you, Dr. Anita Nambiar, ma'am. You are one of our icons, and I have Dr. Bhavtarini, ma'am, also in the audience, which is very special. So I'm going to tackle CGM in pregnancy. And let me give you the verdict that in type 1 there is no question about its use. Yeah. This one. The use is highly advocated. In type 2 the results may be somewhat conflicting. Yeah. But definitely the convenience of using the CGM is there. So let me walk you through the evidence that we have as of today and what we in India need to generate. So understanding the importance of glycemic control during pregnancy of women with diabetes and gaining insights into the latest research and evidence supporting CGM use during pregnancy is something that I would like to review. Women with type 1 diabetes have had poor pregnancy outcomes, and we all are aware of that. Macrosomia, which was described as early as 80 years ago, it still impacts 60% of live births. So that's a significantly huge number. And then again, LGA combined with this increased risk of maternal and neonatal complications all predispose our infants to developing obesity, diabetes, and all metabolic disorders, including cardiovascular disease in adulthood. So that is why we want to impact this particular window that we have of hyperglycemia and pregnancy, and we should use all the tools that we can to improve the outcomes. It has also been seen that tight glycemic control to prevent these outcomes is the major focus of antenatal care. So hyperglycemia and pregnancy and the fetal and maternal complications are listed here, which I think all of you are well aware of. And because of that, recommendations from the world over are very tight glycemic control, and from our very own diabetes in pregnancy study group DIPSI, the target is fasting of less than 90 milligram per DL and 2 hours post meal at 120 or less milligrams per DL as per the DIPSI guidelines, which is followed by the the government as well. The standard of care undoubtedly is SMBG, but finger prick self-monitored blood glucose can have a lot of negative impact also on the pregnant woman. And there's stress, there's anxiety, there's a lot of pregnancy related feelings or emotions that a woman goes through, and this just adds to the burden of that mental distress. So anything to sort of allay that anxiety, and we have the continuous glucose monitoring systems which are revolutionizing diabetes clinical care practice. And here you can see the sensor which is inserted on the skin, and from the interstitial tissue it's measuring the the glucose values, and then the transmitter further transmits all that sensor picked up glucose values to the phone or even the reader, and that will translate into a glucose value. As you can see, I've displayed it here. You can see the glucose reading, the alarm features, the profile of the previous 24 hours, and the time period that you can choose with the trend arrow as well. So a lot of functions are incorporated in this continuous glucose monitoring system. And on a standard basis, the key metrics would be as enlisted here. And again, you can see that traffic signal bar, which I have showed you, that's one of the outputs of the AGP. But let's look at what is special or different in pregnancy. So again, this is the international consensus on time in range by Dr. Tade et al. And Dr. Banshi Sabu sir, who's here, is also part of this. And you can see that in type 1 diabetes pregnancy, definitely the TIR targets are defined based on studies, but for gestational and type 2 diabetes, we really do not have a consensus regarding the same. Although I can say that it's evolving, and today we are far more advanced in that aspect. But as far as type 1 pregnancy goes, every 5% matters, right? So every 1% increase in TIR or time in range matters, because the risk of LGA, the risk of neonatal hypoglycemia, and the risk of NICU admissions all go down with with increase in time in range and improvement in TAR as well as TBR. TAR, time above range, and TBR, these three are the metrics that we really focus on in pregnancy. But as far as early onset type 2 diabetes pregnancy, which is a very, very emerging concept and has taken the world by storm because it's far more aggressive than gestational diabetes or type 2 diabetes that appears later, we really don't know much about what are the targets we should follow. So coming back to type 1 diabetes, and we have several studies, but not all were very conclusive. Well, the Murphy et al. 2008 study showed us that in type 1 as well as type 2, CGM use was accompanied with a significant reduction in HbA1c, as well reduction in macrosomia and birth weight. And then there were other studies which showed that there was no real difference between CGM and SMBG use. But you can overall see that antenatal care plus CGM definitely seemed to improve outcomes. Moving on to the CONCEPT study, which was a multi-centric international randomized controlled trial that compared essentially two groups, the pregnant women compared to those who were planning pregnancy, and then they were randomized to real-time CGM plus SMBG versus SMBG and standard care. And again, these groups were stratified by HbA1c and insulin pump therapy use as well. The primary outcome was change in HbA1c at 24 to 34 weeks, and secondary outcomes included maternal, neonatal, and glycemic outcomes, including hypoglycemia. As you can see, the baseline characteristics are well balanced between the two groups, and the primary outcome, the difference is not very significant, although in those who are pregnant, planning pregnancy, and those who conceived through the trial, definitely it is better with CGM use as indicated by the red line as compared to the black, which was the control. The secondary outcomes, you can see the time in range was 16.3 hours per day with CGM use as compared to 14.6 hours per day. But I told you that every 5% or every hour matters as far as pregnancy goes. So overall, the neonatal outcomes were decreased LGA, decreased neonatal hypoglycemia, and decreased NICU and LOS for the CGM use. However, there were no difference in maternal outcomes seen in this study. The next study was this observational cohort study of 186 pregnancies in type 1 diabetes women. where they compared, where 186 pregnant women with diabetes were either exposed to the Dexcom CGM or the Freestyle Libre in 94, that is an intermittently viewed CGM. And the primary outcome here was LGA and a neonatal composite outcome including macrosomia, shoulder dystocia, neonatal hypoglycemia, and admission to NICU. But this was a study planned essentially to look at which metric is most important when you use CGM in type 1 diabetes. So in the first trimester, they found that HbA1c was important because that was the variable most associated with LGA. As far as second trimester goes, there's mean sensor glucose that comes in because you can see TIR, TAR, and TBR all are associated with LGA. And then trimester 3 was again mean sensor glucose, which had the most correlation with LGA. Thus, the strongest predictor of LGA, HbA1c in trimester 1. And why am I emphasizing on this? Because this can help us screen individuals earlier as well, or this is type 1, so you can treat them more aggressively, and then trimester 2 and 3 mean sensor glucose would help. Across the gestation CGM metrics and the correlation with LGA, this was a combined analysis of the concept and the Swedish study data with 386 women with type 1 diabetes, where they looked at the CGM glucose metrics and 24-hour profiles across each gestational week, and then divided by LGA and normal size infants. And you can see again, the red line indicates the infants with LGA, mothers who had infants with LGA, and the blue is no LGA. And you can see that mean glucose or percentage time in range, or even percentage time above range or below range, all start to separate around the 10 weeks of gestation, if you look at the time course. So this helped us to see that differences in glucose levels emerge right early from 10 weeks itself, and they are sustained across pregnancy, and achieving mean glucose of less than 7 millimoles per liter was associated with a normal size infant. Early intervention before 10 weeks aiming for 55 to 60% TIR, and more than 70% thereafter can reduce the occurrence of LGA. But CGM data needs to be reviewed on a weekly basis. Again, looking further into the data, we found that before 10 weeks, most maternal glucose levels were above the target. And then second and third trimesters, high postprandial glucose was the problem. So in conclusion, we definitely need to target the maternal diet as well to help reduce these postprandial peaks. The role of CGM in type 2 diabetes and GDM, and I gave you that spoiler alert right in the beginning that we do not have too much data with respect to this that supports the use of CGM, but you should know what the patients feel or what are the patients asking for. So these are two trials which were either non-conclusive or not significant in their outcomes when they looked at SMBG versus CGM. And the Today study is again a landmark study because this is an actual report on 260 pregnancies in 141 women, where the treatment options for type 2 diabetes in adolescents and youth study were assessed. Based on observations from the Today cohort, 65% had obstetric and neonatal complications, 25% had a miscarriage or stillbirth, 10% congenital anomalies, and HbA1c less than 8% versus more than 8%, you can see the difference in cardiac outcomes as well. So this is a significant finding, again urging us to move towards identifying these women early on and treating them aggressively. Again, you can see amongst all the age groups of 0 to 25, 19 to 25 remain significant for youth onset diabetes. This is very aggressive, type of diabetes which we are seeing, and 57% of all pregnancies with early onset diabetes and 33 to 50% had gestational diabetes. So this has been increasing, and this is the trend from the UK, where again last few years they've seen a massive increase. And the correlation between the third trimester HbA1c and perinatal death is very, very strong. Amongst all the risk factors that you can see, it's actually the glucose which is the modifiable risk factor, which makes it even more important for us to target. So type 2 diabetes is actually more concerning than type 1 diabetes when it comes to perinatal mortality. You can see the rate is extremely high with type 2 diabetes starting early. Pregnancy outcomes of young women with type 2 diabetes and poor care and inadequate attention to glycemia. This was from analysis of 5,000 odd pregnancies with early onset type 2 diabetes, and they found that preterm births, LGA and neonatal care admissions were the lowest when HbA1c was less than 6.1%. Looking at the feasibility and acceptability of intermittently scanned CGM for women with type 2 diabetes in pregnancy, and this is very relevant for the Indian context. Well, even though there are late referrals and there is enough discontinuation and again very variable use of CGM, it's definitely being preferred by the women living with diabetes during pregnancy, and 94% were found in this particular survey who would recommend CGM to others. So this is an important takeaway for Indians, that we need to start using CGM more in pregnancy and generate our own data regarding the same. Again, in terms of outcomes, and this is a disclaimer because I'm not sure if the sample size calculated was enough or not. And give me a couple of minutes more, please, ma'am. Early versus late pregnancy time in range, even with CGM use, there was not much difference in the improvement in TIR. And again, trimester specific range is also not significantly different across the trimesters. However, I think this is a call to action, because this just implies that we need to probably look more into patient education and review of CGM data more closely. Again, a massive audit from the UK, the National Pregnancy in Diabetes Audit from 2001 and 2002, CGM use, glycemic control and pregnancy complications. You can't see much of a difference with CGM use in reduction of HbA1c. However, no lower rates of preterm birth, LGA or NICU admissions were noted in this 2,500 patients noted using CGM. Again, guidelines urge us to look at CGM in tandem with SMBG, and they are definitely proposing that there is, suggesting that there is an improvement in outcome. Thus, CGM is superior to SMBG in type 1 diabetes, like I told you, but most useful metrics for glycemic control associated with outcomes are HbA1c less than 6 to 6.5%, mean glucose values less than 7 millimole per liter, TIR above 70%, TAR less than 25%, and TBR less than 4%. And achieving recommended targets in the real world is hard and requires at least once or two weekly reviews of the CGM throughout pregnancy. But every 5% increase, that is even 1 hour increase in time in range, improves neonatal outcomes. Thus, we need more research to support CGM in use in diabetes. This is an excellent review in 2024 Diabetes Care. And I'm not going through the cases, but suffices to say, thank you so much for this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you, Purvi, for the excellent talk. You had told everyone present here what we need to do during pregnancy, especially gestational diabetes and type 1 diabetes as well as type 2 diabetes. In type 2 diabetes, what she said, the metrics of CGM, it is time in range is around 70%, above can be 25% and below can be 50%. But during pregnancy, it has to be more than 90% of the time in range. What she said is even 1 hour difference in the total time period can be quite bad. And also she has taken us through the concept trial, the concept plus Swedish trial, and today's studies and many things you have said. So what does it mean? We have to have a strict blood control during pregnancy, whether type 1, type 2, whatever it is, to prevent all those anomalies. Just one question can be there from the floor.
What is the time range of pregnancy type range or time in pregnancy range? Can it be referred to as that?
It can be. Anyway, the range is between 63 and 140 for pregnancy. But yes, that could be equivalent to the same. I can't hear you.
Can be a bit louder?
CGM is used only for 14 days.
Right.
Pregnancy is a diabetes. So, which period is best or should we use continuously?
Very difficult to say. Continuous would be most important, but if you start seeing on SMBG also, if there are too many fluctuations, you can recommend CGM use at that point to help the patient. Also, those who are on insulin and basal bolus therapy during pregnancy, definitely CGM use would be far more essential and helpful to them. Because we have sensors that last only 14 days. Ideally.
Ideally, one should do it before vaccine.
Absolutely. So there are a lot of studies which I didn't have time to include that actually CGM metrics also help to predict GDM. They may not, as yet, we may not have enough evidence to prevent GDM, but there's enough evidence that early use of CGM can help us predict who all are going to develop GDM in pregnancy.
Thank you, Dr. Purvi, and I thank the Dr. Jyotidev and the whole of organizing team to giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am.